Hello everybody, and in today's video we are going to talk about one of the most requested topics that I have ever had on this channel, which is the OUIJA board. Hold on, it's not right. So we're going to talk about the OUIJA board. Is it good, bad, or even evil? I had so many requests about talking again about the OUIJA board. The reason why I am saying again is because I actually already made a very long video about my haunted, paranormal, demonic kind of experiences with the OUIJA board and not with the OUIJA board, and now you can find it on my Patreon. The link is down below. So if you want to actually hear my one-on-one experience with the board and even negative experiences around graveyards or haunted places and the damage that it can also cause the OUIJA in and of itself, you can head on my Patreon and watch that video, as well as so many other content that I post weekly on my Patreon page. But for today's video, we're really going to talk about how to use the OUIJA board, whether or not you should use it, and the reason why I actually don't use it anymore, but what I learned from this divination tool and everything that we kind of need to know in a nutshell about the OUIJA board. Of course, big disclaimer, if you are sensitive to this topic, if you get really creeped out, you get scared really easily about the OUIJA board as well as demons or things like that, this video is not for you. So just click off, don't get creeped out, don't feed your life with fear. It's not necessary. This video is only for people who are interested and are not that easily impressible. Can you say that in English? Not easily, you know what I'm trying to say, right? So let's dive into the video about the OUIJA board. As you guys can see, I put one of my favorite t-shirts. I'm a huge horror fan, movie fan, not just like The Exorcist, like literally every single movie. In fact, on my Patreon, I have a video of a very intensive list of all my favorite horror movies, which include like some cult movies from the 70s that nobody has ever heard about. So check it out. But apart from talking about my Patreon, let's talk about the OUIJA board. See, the OUIJA board is just a tool. I know that many people do not want to hear this and they're really contrary to the OUIJA board, and I'm going to explain you why I don't use it anymore. And yes, it can be dangerous, so I'm not saying or denying this thing whatsoever. I'm just saying the OUIJA board in and of itself is sold as a toy. This is cardboard board, is just a tool. Actually, I have OUIJA boards all over my house, and one of them I'm sitting on it. It's in fact my mat is a OUIJA board. This is a OUIJA board. The only difference is that it's got zodiac sign, yes or no, maybe, and all the letters. So I always do my video on top of a OUIJA board, we can say, and I'm still alive. Actually, I'm still alive after all the haunted experience, which is weird. Anyway, so I'm still alive, you know what I mean? The OUIJA board in and of itself, even though it has a mysterious origin, and I can make a separate video about the history of the OUIJA board, why it's called OUIJA, it would be just too long to put on this video, so just let me know if you want the history of the OUIJA board, because I have made some very extensive research before I used it back years ago. But the OUIJA board in and of itself is just a tool, just as much as the pendulum is a tool, just as much as the crystal ball is a tool, your hands are a tool, just as much as a knife is a tool, or the tarot are a tool. Those tools are tools of divination, and they are a bridge between the human world and the spirit world. You can cause the same amount of negativity and disastrous events with the tarot and a pendulum as much as with the OUIJA board. However, why though there are so many bad episodes that are being recalled with this particular tool, on the contrary, instead of something like tarot or oracle cards or angel cards, which are perceived much better from society at large, or people who are interested in these tools. The reason that is because obviously, like Jung once said, or was Freud, one of the two, I think it was Jung, we have something that is called collective consciousness. And through our collective consciousness, we feed ideas, thoughts, and energy to a point where thoughts and energy become thought form. Therefore, they become dimensions in and of itself. An example I explained in my video about Patreon deities, how much, some deities are actually just dimensions of consciousness that are fed by the collective consciousness. We can make another video, don't worry about it, about thought forms. Anyhow, the stigma around the Ouija board due to Hollywood and due to the famous movie The Exorcist has caused the Ouija to have a certain vibration to it. Now, many people recall the Ouija in the scene where Regan, the child in the movie The Exorcist, and even in the book The Exorcist, she plays innocently with this toy called Ouija board and start talking with Captain Odie. Captain Odie turns out to be a demon that is Pazuzu, which is a Mesopotamian demon that actually does really exist. So obviously this entire story of The Exorcist, which was actually taken from a real story of a little boy that was actually playing with the Ouija board, which is also creepy. It's a very creepy story. So all of this background and the other Hollywood movies have allowed the Ouija board to have a really bad stigma, and therefore the collective consciousness at large, every time, for the majority of the time, that is thinking about the Ouija board is thinking Ouija board equal spirit, equal evil, equal Pazuzu, equal demons, equal possessed, equal I'm gonna go crazy, I'm gonna die. This is what the majority of people think about the Ouija board. Therefore, if the majority of the people on planet Earth, when they're tuning in to the idea of the Ouija board, this is their thought, it becomes, because of the collective, it becomes a thought form. Sure, the Ouija board has bad energy attached to it. And this is just the truth. People that say the opposite of this are lying. A tool, it's like a deity. If you're talking about a demon, is a thought form, is a dimensions of consciousness that is fed by negative thought and negative energy. It's just what it is. And because everybody thinks about the Ouija board in a negative way, this energy is going to be attached to this board and to this tool is just going to be like this. If one day everybody on this planet will stop feeding with fear the idea of the Ouija, the negativity towards the Ouija board will disappear from the thought form consciousness of the Ouija board. This is simply the truth. However, is the Ouija board in and of itself bad? No. Is the Ouija board in and of itself going to lead you to demonic possession all the time or to bad experiences? No. I had amazing, beautiful experiences with the Ouija board. In fact, many children who do not even have any idea of what the Ouija board is, or do not have any preconception or even fear of what the Ouija board is, have recalled beautiful experiences and even talking to angels when they were using the Ouija board. One of them is one of the woman that I've met. She's also an hypnotherapist. She's called Karen Hall Dahlman. You can find also her channel over here on YouTube. She taught me how to use the Ouija board in a positive way. And in her book, The Mystery of the Ouija, or How to Use the Ouija, I don't remember the name exactly, I'm so sorry, Karen, but in her book, she explains her story as a child using the Ouija board and actually always have positive experiences because she was never afraid of it, and actually being able to talk to angels. And in fact, she has taught for many years people how to use the Ouija board in a very safe way and how to connect with angels and with source through the Ouija. Check her channel out. She's a lovely lady. She has helped me out so much, and her book is really nice in order to move forward to the negative stigma and connotation that the Ouija has. So, however, this video is going to be with tons of however. However, as any divination tool, which is only a bridge, a portal between the humanly experience and the spirit world, any tool can be used to access negativity and negative state of consciousness. The Ouija simply has more of a history of that. And the reason that is because, for instance, the negative experiences that I had with the Ouija board, where prayer when I didn't know what the freaking hell was I doing with this board. So I could have had negative experiences with the pendulum as well with the tarot for what I am concerned, because I was taking it in haunted places, in graveyards at night. I was never praying, never invited my angels and spirit guides. Sometimes I was even drunk because of my ex-boyfriend and everything that happened in his house. I was in a house where I was surrounded by 12 or 15 vintage OUIJA board, all scratched, didn't know who the hell has used them before me, in a house full of demon statues. And if you want to know the full story, head on my Patreon. So in that particular case, I might have put myself into a lot of danger, which in fact has happened. So obviously, if you're using the OUIJA board and you do not know what you're doing, but as well, if you're using tarot, that's the same thing. There are tarot readers who feed a lot of negativity, and once you watch their videos or once you watch their tarot, you feel very negative and you don't understand why bad things are happening in your life. Those people might have actually channeled some negative energy. I'm not saying that everybody did. I am just saying that it can happen also through tarot, not just with the OUIJA board, okay? So if you do not know what you're doing, let's say for instance, you're with your friend, it's Halloween, hey, spirit, and let's play with the OUIJA board. You do not do a prayer, you have never used the board in your life. The board is an advanced tool, as much as the pendulum is. You have never used the board and you just sit down with your friends or even alone, which is even worse, and you just go and say, and let's not use the board actually to say that, hello, is anybody here? That's a really bad way to start, because you're opening a portal for any freaking thing from the astral realm to open up and just talk to you. Now, the reason that is because the astral realm, it's full of spirit, which do not always have good intention. They don't have to be necessarily demonic, but think about the astral plane as the gigantic mall where so many people are in there, and some people are transitioning, some people are coming, some people are stuck in there. If you want to know more about the astral world, just check out my video on this channel about the astral world, or it's on my Patreon if you don't find it on this channel. I think it's on this channel anyway. However, so obviously you're opening a portal and you do not even know who you're talking about or you're talking with. And on top of that, if your vibration, let's say that subconsciously you have watched The Exorcist and it freaked you out and you're super afraid of horror movie, even subconsciously, consciously you might say, oh, I'm fine, I don't believe in this stuff, but subconsciously your vibration is actually really afraid of the OUIJA, is really afraid of demon, and you're really afraid of spirit, you're really afraid of the experience, you're just gonna sit and say with that planchette, hello, is anybody here? Bad choice, bad idea. Now, it doesn't have to be that necessarily you're going to be in contact with a demon. I mean, it's not that easy to be in contact with a demonic energy or this sort of stuff, but you can be in contact with any spirit that might be depressed, might be mischievous, might have lost themselves, or even Aleister Crowley, even though I'm not a fan of Aleister Crowley, has actually wrote a book about the OUIJA, which is quite interesting in his perspective, I gotta admit. If you want to know more about Aleister Crowley, watch my video entitled Aleister Crowley. But anyway, he talks about the OUIJA and says many times we do not even encounter necessarily spirit, because you have to be quite advanced to be in contact with a spirit. But most of the time what happens with the OUIJA is that we create egregores, or we create thought form, or we just encounter elementals that are made by our energy. And therefore, if we cannot direct this egregores, thought form, or elementals with offerings or any other tool, it can end up draining us and having actually a really bad experience. So we can make a different video about what egregores are, thought forms, and elementals, because that's a whole different topic and it will take me 2 hours of this video to explain to you. So if you're not expert in this topic, please stay away from the OUIJA board. If you never use divination tools, stay away from the OUIJA board. If you have not in contact with angels, you're not meditating on a day-to-day basis, you are not trained on a spiritual path, stay the heck away from the OUIJA board, because what is happening, you're opening a portal of a tool that has already negative energy being fed on it through the collective consciousness. It's not a good idea at all. It's much safer to just go to a psychic or read your astrology chart. That I agree. However, if you are trained, if you meditate, if you do not fear the OUIJA board at all, because you do understand that after all, it's only a tool and it will depend on your vibration. If you are more advanced on energy work, the law of attraction, you meditate, you pray, you have a connection with your angels, yes, you can use the OUIJA board. I wouldn't advise to use the OUIJA board though on your own. I will always advise to have a partner with you. And actually the OUIJA board for more advanced practitioners can be also used to access the higher self. Like the pendulum, at the end of the day, spirit doesn't always move the board. Actually, what happens most of the time is that your muscles are moving the board, so you're basically answering yourself. So the board can be accessed to talk with your higher self and do some shadow work, or even understanding better your inner perspective. For a spirit to actually being able to move the planchette on its own without your finger, it will require so much amount of energy. So what actually happens with spirits is that spirit is basically, you are giving them permission to enter your energy field, so through your energy field they can move the board. And this happens on more advanced practitioner, in my opinion. Though if you're even talking, let's say, with an angel or with a spirit, a good spirit, you need to pray, you need to sage, possibly you need to wear protection and do some offerings. Those things are mandatory if you're using the board, in my opinion. Prayer, it's mandatory, because you need to make sure that you're not giving permission to any other entities apart from the one that you are requiring, which are angels and higher energies. And even if you are praying and you're only giving permission to those entities, you need to make sure you have done a bath, you have cleansed yourself, you're not depressed, you're not in a lower state of energies, because that will attract lower vibrations. It's just what it is. So higher vibrational, advanced state, of a practitioner in the divination, a realm, and prayer. Offering. Why offering? Because let's say, for instance, that you're just talking with your higher self over some incident, you are creating an egregore on an elemental. This elemental will use your energy in order to move the board. Same what happened with a spirit, or even more. A spirit, a real spirit, even an angel, requires a lot. Angels maybe not, because they function a little bit differently, but spirit or even spirit guides, they require a heck of a lot of energy in order to move through you the board. Therefore, you need to give some offerings in order for your body and your consciousness and your energy field not to end up drained. And the way you do this is by offering fruit, is by offering flowers. It's to put them candles, incense, then to put them on the side of the OUIJA. And then you can start your session. In my humble opinion, and never alone, but always accompanied by at least other 2 people. One person needs to just recall what is happening in the board and needs to function as a guide and as a protector in the experience. Therefore, doesn't have to touch the board and doesn't have to be part of the circle. Another tool for witches will be to actually build a sacred space and a circle of salt to be double protected. That's why it's an advanced tool, and I cannot stress this enough. The practitioner that is only writing down the letters that are coming from the OUIJA board needs to stay out of the circle and just needs to function as a guide. Other 2 people instead are joining in their energy in love and light, hopefully, in order to have some useful information. And now let's put the last part of this video for advanced practitioner. Once you are going to be on the board and communicating with a higher energy spirit, obviously ask questions that are not, am I going to pass the exam tomorrow? Try not to be shallow in your answer. You know whether or not you're going to pass the exam tomorrow. Have you studied or not? Usually when you are connecting to higher spirit, they want to talk about love. They want to talk about your improvement, your spiritual mission, your life purpose, how much you're benefiting in this world, your relationships. And you will actually notice a difference, not only in energy, but in the way that a higher source, a higher spirit is replying to you, because the entire conversation will be always shifted in love and positivity and this sort of topic. Rather, if you're talking with a more mischievous spirit or a spirit that is not very advanced, those spirits actually will engage in very mundane questions because they just have fun to play with you. Maybe they're not even evil. They just have fun to play around with you with stupid questions and to make you believe, or they might have some access to the future and so they answer a little bit of these questions, but you know, you don't need that. You don't need it all. So this is the truth about the OUIJA board, according to me. And I don't want to make this video super long for you guys, so we can make a part 2 if you want a more in-depth video. Or like I said, I do actually have a much more in-depth video on my Patreon where I talk to you about everything that happened to me and even my horror stories. Now, let's go to the part of why I do not use the OUIJA board anymore. Actually, this board is new. I have never used it. It's completely new. It's not scratched anywhere. It's like from the box, like this. I own this OUIJA board because it reminds me of very beautiful moments, and moments where I talked to my angels, moments where I was in England, and it's just, you know, I love the imagery, I love the picture, I wrote an album thanks to OUIJA board. In my second band that was called Dead Witches, I only wrote the first album and then I left the band. But if you guys want to listen to it, the album is called Ouija from Dead Witches, and the OUIJA board, thanks to her, I wrote my song Ouija and the entire album. It was an amazing experience that I've done with a very positive spirit. So I do not always have negative experiences with the Ouija, and it's a beautiful tool, and I own in my entire house all the tools. I own the crystal balls, I own crystals, I own various OUIJA boards from the mat to this one, I own the pendulum, I own tarot, oracles, charts, I own them all. I teach, you know, psychic abilities and how to awaken your psychic abilities. Link to my e-courses are down below. So it's obvious that I'm going to have a OUIJA board. And I'm not excluding that maybe one day I could reuse it. However, I don't use it anymore because it's a very, you know, slow tool in order to channel. Therefore, like, it takes a lot of time for the spirit to move the board. It makes me very drained. You have to give, like I said, a lot of offering in order not to get drained. And there are just faster way to communicate with spirit. And because I have developed direct channeling and mediumship in the last 3 years that I've been here on YouTube, I just either script and write down things, or I just close my eyes, connect with my angels and angel group Ray, and I just plain on channel. My voice becomes the tool, and that's about it. So that's why I moved away from the board. I am not scared of the board, not even, like, seriously. I have encountered all sorts of energy, super negative ones, super negative ones, guys. If you watch that video, you will know. Like, I have faced really horrible negative energies. I faced higher energies. I'm not afraid of the spirit world. I've been in contact with the spirit world since I was a child, and you know, I'm just not afraid of a tool, whatever that tool is. But I do understand that it is a tool that has a lot of negativity attached to it. I don't necessarily think it's a beginner tool. I don't necessarily think that is a necessary tool, and there's just so much better. So if you want to have a positive experience, those were my advice and the things that you should do. But you can have a beautiful experience with tarot as well. You can have a beautiful experience with meditation. You do not necessarily have to access the board if you are afraid of it. And unfortunately, I did see a lot of people that started using the board and talking with any spirit that is in the astral realm, not absolutely knowing what they were doing. And what happened happens with negative spirit or mischievous spirit is that they need to exist. So because they want to exist, they need to attach themselves to something, whether it is a home or it is a person, because they are losing their connection to source energy. So either they just go back to source, which basically their soul is there because their soul never leaves the spirit world, but to still exist in this astral body, they need to feed energy from something. So usually they attach themselves to people and they start draining their energy off, which can lead to obsession, it can lead to depression, and it can lead to negative patterns and behaviors, which unfortunately I did see in people that were using the Ouija board irresponsibly. That's just withdrawal from their friends. I saw obsession of the Ouija. I saw negative thoughts and patterns. I saw suicide. I saw really bad things that I explain in my video. So, you know, the spirit world is not a game. You know what I mean? We can talk about love and light as much as we want on this channel, and I do not want to creep out or scare people at all. I'm not saying that. Yes, true, you can communicate with your spirit guides. Yes, true, there are angels. Yes, true, you are protected. If you do things properly, nothing bad will happen to you. This is the truth. Love will win above all. Love is the only thing that is real. This is true. However, when we are in a human body, we can have access to this astral realm that has so many things. So if you're not naturally psychic, you are afraid, you do not know what you're doing, you might mess around because you love horror movies like I did, and you're going to haunted places using the board, it's not a good idea. Simply not. So, can you use the board? Yes, you have to use it safely with the safety measurements that I told you before. And it's not the first tool that, in my humble opinion, I could be wrong, but in my humble opinion, it's not a tool that I do advise to beginners, but I always do advise it to advanced practitioners, very advanced practitioners that already have a strong relationship with angels and spirit guides and source energy. Okay, so these are my thoughts on the Ouija board and just what I feel it's the right thing to do and to explain about the board. If you want a second part of this video where I explain you guys the history of the board and we dive much deeper, please go ahead and comment down below. Insert your questions. What specifics do you want to know about the board? What are your experiences and what you want to know more? Don't be shy, just comment. And even if you do not agree with me and you're like, no, Naya, absolutely, the board is super dangerous, it should be burned or, you know, banned from existing, just comment down below. I want to know your opinion. As long as you're respectful, I want this to be a channel that is open to anybody. I do not like to delete comments. Just be respectful, and I will be so happy to also hear things that are different from what I said, okay, in a way or another. I thank you so much for sticking around for this video. Hopefully this video wasn't too dark, so let's see what I can do editing. I apologize for that, and see you very soon in another of my videos here on Radio Alchemy and on my Patreon for all the extra content. I love you guys. Bye from me and the Ouija board. Bad, good, or evil.